Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Quote, probably approved the poisoning
of another former Russian spy.
Former KGB officer Alexander Litvinenko.
The judge ruled that Litvinenko was murdered by 2 government agents a decade ago.
A report and an allegation that threatens to sour relations even more between Russia and the West.
A new British report released just today finds that Russian President Vladimir Putin likely ordered the killing of a former KGB agent who defected to British intelligence. Almost 10 years ago, Alexander Litvinenko died from radioactive poisoning that was put into his cup of tea at London's Millennium Hotel. Today's report finds that the 2 men who deliberately poisoned him were working on behalf of Russian intelligence. Litvinenko's widow, Marino, addressed reporters today.
I'm also calling for the imposition of targeted economic sanction and travel bans against named individuals, including Mr. Patrushev and Mr. Putin.
Moscow dismisses the findings of the new report and warns the proceedings could poison relations with the West.
All right, thanks, Miranda. To discuss this further, now we're going to bring in former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz, the senior vice president at the Center for Security Policy. Also joining us, Todd Wood, columnist with the Washington Times. He's also covered Russia extensively. We have him on from time to time to talk about the situation in Russia. Now, Todd, we look at this accusation today. Obviously, it causes some tension between the UK and Russia, but what does it mean when you look at the trilateral situation between our relationship with Russia, John Kerry meeting with Sergei Lavrov just this week, also our relationship with the UK?
Well, you're right. This is a decade old, and just because the UK issued a report saying what everybody already knew, I don't think really changes the situation. I mean, maybe it forces the UK to be a little more publicly forceful about responding to the issue. But you're mentioning Kerry's meeting with Lavrov. I mean, Russia is hurting right now, and if the US and the West can apply more economic pressure to force them into a settlement in Ukraine and other hotspots in the world, I mean, now's the time to do it because they are very weak financially at this point.
Yeah, and the situation not being helped by the fact that oil at a 3 decades, at a low point in quite some time. Now, Fred, when you look at this, is there any chance that this is our friends, the British, kind of turning the knife into Russia now as they get more and more desperate with the Russian economy sinking?
Well, no, I think the British are issuing a report on something that was pretty outrageous that took place on their territory. A Russian citizen was assassinated with polonium-210. Polonium-210 is 250,000 times more poisonous than cyanide. A grain of sand can kill a man, and who knows how many other people could have been killed. This just shows that the thuggery of the KGB continues under Vladimir Putin, and I think the British were right in calling Putin out on this.
Well, Todd, do you think those sanctions that Litvinenko's wife mentioned or widow mentioned, are they appropriate?
Well, I mean, your other guest is completely correct. I mean, this is a horrendous act. If you could look at it as an act of nuclear terrorism on a foreign country's soil, but again, I think if London was going to do anything, they would have done it a long time ago as far as severe sanctions against the Kremlin.
Yeah, I guess to follow up that question, I'm asking really, does it go far enough, Fred?
Well, I'm afraid that the British are simply going to issue this report and they're not going to do anything about it because the United States and Britain and other countries have other equities with Russia. But, I mean, the British have to do something, so at least issuing this report. But just like we're beginning to ignore Russia's abuses and intervention in Ukraine, I think we're going to move past this too.
Yeah, and Todd, as we wrap up here, the question is the timing of all of this. What do you make of that?
Well, you have to look at this from a 30,000-foot level. The Russian economy is plummeting. The ruble hit an all-time low against the dollar. Oil's not going anywhere anytime soon as far as saving the Kremlin from their adventures overseas in Syria and East Ukraine. So they're in a real fix, and you've got Ukraine actually pushing back against Russia right now, saying they're going to take back the Crimean Peninsula, which is never going to happen. But there could be a solution in East Ukraine, and now is the time to apply that pressure and make that happen.
And Fred, as we mentioned the meeting between Sergei Lavrov and John Kerry this week, do you think there's any indication that the British may have given Kerry a heads up and this subject was broached at all during that meeting?
I think the British probably mentioned this to Kerry, but I doubt Kerry mentioned it because there are given the Iran talks are the priority right now, the Iran deal, I don't think the United States is going to bring this up with the Russians.
All right, fair enough. Fred Fleitz, always great to see you. Todd Wood, great to see you as well. Look forward to checking back in with both of you gentlemen coming up here in the near future.
Good to be here.
All right, stay tuned. We got much more to come here on Newsmax Now. We're going to continue to look at the brewing feud with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and the celebrity endorsements that are coming in. You see this man right here, Glenn Beck? He's expected to endorse Ted Cruz and appear at some Iowa campaign events coming up this weekend. What does that mean for the feud? And a new discovery far out in space. We knew there was something out there. Is there another planet in our solar system 10 times the size of planet Earth? We'll talk about that discovery, and also still time for you to weigh in. We want to hear from you. We want to talk about Sarah Palin. Is it fair for the media to attack her for her comments about her son and PTSD? Reach out to us.